we start first. I'll just do the culture and society parts, and then I'll come to the history parts. So as far as this Gandhar is concerned, the influence of Central Asian and the Greco-Bactrian influences, that's the Greek influences on Gandhar art. Number one, as far as Gandhar is concerned, now the term has distorted to Kandhar. That's old Kandhar, old Gandhar. So this area became important just because of Alexander's route. This was the route through which he came and again returned. Now, the second thing, that when the Persians captured this area, they called it Iskandaria, and then now it is called as Kandhar. As far as the Gandhar art is concerned, this art is totally, I think, it is Greek influenced art. There is very little influence of this Central Asian or the Persian influence. The Central Asian is nothing but it is Persian influence. That Persian history is that the Persian Empire and the Greek Empire, these two empires were always regular clash, and so as in love, there is clash and there is attraction. So what happens, whenever somebody attacks other country, then there is interaction also, then there is relations also. So by the time, by this 3rd century BC itself, or to be very frank, 5th century BC itself, when the Greek Achaemenian Empire evolved and emerged, by that time they had overrun this Greek empire and they influenced each other. So there was no difference. But as far as this Gandhar art is concerned, the period of this Gandhar art is 1st century BC to 7th century AD. 1st century BC to 7th century AD. Now, next thing is that the whole area where Gandhar art prevailed and was there was from today's Kandahar province in Afghanistan, one province out of the 18 provinces in Afghanistan, to the Swat Valley of modern day Pakistan. To the Swat Valley of modern day Pakistan. So, now, as far as the central figure of the Gandhar art is, it is none else but Buddha. Buddha is the central figure. Buddha is the central figure. The irony is that it was influenced by the Greek sculpture and Greek art, but there was no Buddhism in Greece. Buddhism could never cross the boundaries of Asia, nor the boundary. It never reached Africa, it never reached Europe, it never reached America. There was no America at that time. People, at least the civilized world, the so-called civilized world, did not know about this. But the whole of Asia, I'm not very sure, and the historians are also not very sure, that if whole of Iran was Buddhist, whole of Pakistan, modern Pakistan, whole of Central Asia was Buddhist. So this area and the central figure is Buddhist and Buddhism. Now, as far as among Buddhism or in this Buddhism, there had been at that time two denominations, one Mahayana, another Hinayan. So Mahayana was the central influence on this Gandhar art, because the Hinayan people, they do not construct, they do not have sculptures of Buddha or the other Buddha icons. In Sri Lanka, there are no Buddha icons. That's Heenan area. In Burma, in Thailand, no such things are there. But in China, that's again Mahayana area, there were. And in India, Mahayana was the superior. The whole area, the whole Central Asia became Buddhist, and there were those things. Now, the major places where this Buddhist sculpture is there are the Bamiyan. Right now, that has been destroyed by these terrorists. So, Bamiyan is there, Bazeru is there, Peshawar is there. These are the places of major Gandhar art. Now, what is the two significant areas? One is the elements through which the Buddhist icon was constructed or the sculpture was constructed. That was entirely Central Asian. The stucco, that plastering thing, the plastering is not popular in Rome, either Rome or in Greece. They don't do this. This stucco thing, they don't. As far as the material is concerned, it is sandstone, no doubt, but it is grand sandstone. It is bluish mica schist. It is bluish mica schist. As far as the draping is concerned, the drapes are concerned, that is truly Persian, that is truly modern Iranian, and that's this Central Asian influence. But since I said that there was similarity between the Greece and this Iranian cultures, that's why this draping, this cloth seems to be, the style seems to be one or more Greece and less of Iranian, but it is more Iranian. Now, as far as the Greek influence is concerned, that's the major influence. Number one, Apollo god. You see the icon of Apollo and the Gandhar Buddha, both are almost one. Curly hair, somewhat puffy at the front, and then the whole figure, a nose, a very same nose, and then the whole face is almost a Greek structure. The halo over this Buddhist sculpture or the Buddhist icon is entirely a Roman thing. And then the style and this kind of this posturing, that's definitely entirely Greek posturing. Now, after the Indus culture in India, almost no evidence of sculptures, icons, murtis, statues are to be found. Nowhere, nowhere. But then it was the Greek influence from which we learned about this statue making or icon construction. We learned many things from them. I mean, astrology, we learned even some kind of this artistic figures. And then this, we have already, or you know very much, that there was a continuity between Gandhar, right one line, at this Mathura and Nagar, this three places where this Buddhist icon was the central figure. Now, remember one thing, just write one thing. Since the Masons were Indian, that's why there was an Indian influence also. Since the Masons were Indian, there was this Indian influence also, and this Indian influence led to this kind of posturing, this kind of icon making, which is called as the Greek, icons. Right, this much. But two things you have to do. Introduce in the beginning that Gandhar is described in the scriptures of India. Gandhari, don't write about Gandhari, but Gandhari derives her name from Gandhar itself. Clear? So this Gandhar is part of the Indian mythology, although the central figure is entirely Buddhism or Buddhist structure. Clear? Any doubts in this? The second thing, always in the GS or any question in the art of this answer writing, you have to write introduction, you have to write conclusion. No compromise. 2 marks cannot be snatched away from you because of this writing. If you write this introduction, 1 mark. If you write this conclusion, there is 1 mark. This is the rule of UPSC. Okay, come. So the next question, as far as this society is concerned, society question, probably it is 8th, question number 8th. Just bolo, just any questions, any doubts, any doubts. This was a question of art, and from even in 2018 there was only 1 question from art. In 2017 there were 2 questions from art. In 2019 they have only 1 question from art area. Now this question number 8.
Sir, here it's written Vaishnava and Shaiva cultural traditions. Vaishnava and Shaiva cultural traditions show any influence of those?
No, actually not. We have written this yet. My those students, those nothing. In fact, what happened, by the time Vaishnava emerged, Shaivism emerged, although that would be a distraction. At that time, Gandhar was already developed. Shaivism and Vaishnavism is a response, Brahmanical response to the rise of Buddhism. Brahmins are genius. They are really, they are a genius. I am coming to the questions, I'll tell you. Brahmins were not satisfied with the ascendancy of Buddhism for a long period. So they developed Bhagavatism, Vaishnavism. They developed Shaivism. And there were instances in the Rigved Vijay Samhita about this Vishnu. Vishnu Puran is much later, but it is 1st century, 2nd century. You see why the Bhakti movement centered on Vishnu and Shiv starts from 6th century AD. Alvars. And so that's the 6th century to 10th century AD. There is a gap. So where is the influence of Vaishnavism and this? Yes, in Mathura. By the time Mathura evolved, then there was this influence, but again more influence of the ancient practices than of institutional Vaishnavism and Shaivism. There is Yaksh and Yakshini in this Mathura art, but not Vishnu, not Shiva, very clear cut. Come on. So as far as this question is concerned, what makes the Indian society unique in sustaining its culture? What does it mean? This is an old question in UPSC. Probably this is the 3rd time when it has been asked. The wording has been changed. The famous historian, British historian, L. Basham, in his book, The Wonder That Was India, in the introduction itself he writes, what? There had been 4 major ancient civilizations. One Indic, another Chinese, the 3rd is the triangle of the Egyptian culture, the Sumerian culture, and the Babylonian culture. And the 4th is Greco-Roman culture. To repeat again, number 1 is Indic, number 2 is Chinese, number 3 is that 3 combined together, Egyptian, Sumerian, and the Babylonian. Out of these 4, all the cultures in course of time declined, dispersed, or were demolished. It is only the Indic culture which has remained a continuous culture and civilization phenomena for the last 5,000 years. The question is, you'll introduce with this, name Basam, and introduce with this that Indian society has maintained this, the wording is sustain, this sustaining, that is for the 5,000 years, how it has sustained itself. There are probably, as I say very often, there are, number one, Nehru in his discovery of India said, Indian culture has sustained so long because of two things. Number one, its diversity. Its diversity. Its diversity. And the second thing, the accommodation with diversity. The accommodation with diversity. You go Prayag, you go Rishikesh, you go to other places, Vrindavan. There are people from all over India. They all have come for the worship of only one God and deity, but they don't talk to each other. They don't disturb each other because the Malayali, how can just communicate with the UP Bhaiyawala? They do not communicate, but they have come for the same purpose. This is the accommodation. This accommodation has led to this. Number two, how this has been sustained, how this has been maintained. India didn't have one state, didn't have one society. Rather, it had numerous societies. What happened because of these numerous societies? One society, one dynasty, the Cholas came, reigned from 1st century to 3rd century. There was this man with the passed leg, a great Chola ruler. Now, then the Cholas went out of existence. But again they emerged in the 6th century. So the Pallavs, the Pahallavs, Mahamallapuram, they had come from Iran, Parthians. They are all old Parthians. Now see what happens, that there are different, the Rashtrakutas, mighty kings, Govind II, almost whole south of India he conquered. Now they were demolished. But then the whole of India was not demolished. If one is demolishing, the other is emerging. So naturally, this was a very good thing. Rather, China had one state, Thailand had one state, Burma had one state, but India did not have. And this, why not? Why it didn't have? Because there was a continuous immigration from the foreign or from the different areas. So as we know that the Aryans came 1500 century ago. Again, before them, there are many people, even the South Indian Mediterraneans, they had also come from outside. Other than the tribes, probably there, but human beings have not evolved in India. So the whole civilization would be comprised of the foreigners itself. There is no doubt about it. Now, as far as the third region is concerned, the third region is that Brahmins are there everywhere. They might be of different varieties. Somewhere they are Khans, somewhere they are Namudris, somewhere they are Sastris, so different varieties of Brahmins, but they all are Brahmins. So Brahmanism has been a great force. Brahman has been a great force. So probably even in Cholas there were Brahmins, although the later Cholas had the Brahmins, the earlier Cholas. By that time, Brahmanism not had entered South India and Deccan areas. So naturally, you may laugh on it, and people do not. But in the edited book Cultural History of India, Basam has written it that they are a great sustaining force for India. They have sustained Indian culture, they have sustained Indian civilization. Next is that as far as India is concerned, this Indian civilization or Indian culture, there is a question on that, I am coming on to that, but that Indian regions have evolved first. Indian society has evolved later on. Indian regions evolved in 7th century AD. By that time, they were the Kannad's. By that time, they were the Telugus. By that time, these UP Bhaiyas or Hindi walas had already emerged. There were these Kashmiris and all that. So there was this Prag Jyotis and all that. Kamrup was there. So, but as far as one India is concerned, that this regionalism has Indian civilization to establish itself, to sustain itself, to sustain itself. And finally, you may say and you may write that the kind of a geographical continuity, although we have attracted people from three sides, the eastern seas, these Santals and these Proto-Australoid tribes, they have come from Australia and they came through this Bay of Bengal. Then as far as this area is concerned, Ahom, in 1228, the Ahoms, a Thai tribe, they came to India and on the basis of their name, Assam was named Assam. Ahom, in their language, there is no S, so they just called it Ahom, and now here it was turned into Assam. So, and the north is this Bolan, this Bochi, Dochi, all the passes are there from where they have come, and in this western coast have been always open to the Greeks, Romans, these Arabs and the Persians. There had been in the Suleiman's court, this Cholas had their, and the other rulers had their emissaries or ambassadors. So naturally, this is one of the reasons why Indian culture has sustained. All of them were United States, one state. So the state was lost and the civilization was lost. This did not happen as far as India is concerned. This is a civilizational area, not a state area. Come on. Now, is it clear or not? It is clear. So, as far as the third question is concerned, question number 9. Empowering women is the key to control population growth. So, empowering women means what? Empower her. Empower her. So, there are 4 things which empower women. One is education. What education makes her? She becomes conscious, and then she starts protesting that this is my area and this is my area. This is my room, this is my space, this kind of a thing. So education is, I'm coming to that. Second thing is this income. But income is not a very great thing. You might have seen the sabji wali. The whole day she is selling sabji. In the evening, her husband, the boss, comes and collects all the money. So, the third thing is power, political rule. But that's not also very important. Rajia Sultan had to give power just because she was a woman. Just because she was a woman. If she would have been a male, the kind of intelligence, the kind of that statesman qualities she had, she would have ruled for many years. She couldn't because she was a female. And now, as far as related to these things are concerned, if she is able to take her own decisions, so naturally there are in our sociology, anthropology, people are there who just have a criteria for what is the woman empowerment criteria. These are the criteria. Other than these, there are two more things. Has she the right to movement? Can she go out at all 1 o'clock in the night, even in 8 o'clock in the night in Burari, Jasola, Bihar, and move? No. This movement, if a boy is out in even after 1 o'clock in the night, nobody cares. Arey, ladka hai. The girl has not come home, even by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, then they go to police. This is negative, this is not good. Protectionism is negative, it is not good. So, the right to movement is there among the tribes. And lastly, I say, empowerment means if she can marry on her own, if she can marry on her own, no. Still in India, many of them, the majority of them, they do not marry on their own. Arranged marriages are the rule. So, now come that as far as empowerment of women and the population control are concerned, how both are related to each other. Number one, that in 1959 in Madras, UNESCO studied 8 blocks and concluded if the woman is educated, the number of children is low. If woman is educated, the number of children is low. That's an axiom. Number 2, that UNESCO study concluded the more the woman is educated, the less the number of children. The more the woman is educated, the less the number of children, the less the number of child. Now come to another person, Ashish Bose. Probably you have not heard his name, but remember his name. He was a Gadha. I mean, I'm sorry, great scholar and probably the greatest demographer India has ever produced. So there was one man, S.N. Agarwala, who said 1921 is the great divide line. 1921 is the great divide line. Why? Before that, we are sometime losing population. In 1918, we lost population because of influenza. After that, after 1921, we have not looked back as far as population rise is concerned. This man, Ashish Bose, who gave the term Bimaru, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Bimaru, he gave the term Demaru. So also daughter elimination, male urge, that's the Demaru. So what is saying? What is saying? That relatively developed states, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Himachal Pradesh, even they are not very favorable to women, females. But he said one thing, if you want to control population, do 3 things. Number 1, make education compulsory for the Bimaru states. No matter how much you have to spend, make education compulsory for women for these 4 states, because these 4 states are contributing to population rise. 42% population live here of India and 66% growth of population is from these 4 states. Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh, they contribute 66% rise of Indian population. It was on his insistence that the year of girl child was announced in 2001. It was on his insistence that a policy for women education was also announced in 2001. So, you write that this empowerment of women. Why I say this empowerment? I give another and write another thing. That when in 1993 Constitution was amended and this 244A and B were added to this and the Panchayati Raj institutions and the local self-government institutions were made into constitutional institutions, then they were given reservation, 33% reservation. Now 13 states have given 50% reservation to women in Panchayati Raj institution. What this has done? This has done on the one hand political empowerment for them. In those states, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, the voting percentage of women has gone up. In Bihar, they have outnumbered males as far as the voting percentage is concerned. And as far as this report of this FHSL is concerned, Family Health Survey, Indian Family, National Family Health Survey report, 4th round, they have concluded that these Hindi states, if they have declined their mortality, fertility, birth rate, it is because of their more empowerment, and they have become more empowered. They have become given, they have been given reservation, and that's why they are now producing less children. So their average and their conclusion from 9 states is that they have definitely declined fertility now. So you'll conclude that empowerment education, empowerment to women through education, through reservation, through their greater participation, because you write that globalization has increased the participation of women in economic activities. Globalization has increased the participation of women in economic activities. Now, as far as the next question is, there is no doubt, any doubts, no doubts. So now, question number 10. What are the challenges to our cultural practices in the name of secularism? I didn't expect this question from UPSC, but since the government has changed, the dispensation has changed, and so definitely it is definitely imperative that they are employing their own officers. Officers do not take decisions. Decisions are taken by political masters. It is very natural that they can give. So, as far as start writing from secularism itself. Very brief, but right. Secularism is part of modernity. Secularism is part of modernity. I'll come because there is one question how world has been remodeled after modernization, and that too by French and American revolutions. But I'll right now, modernity is a product of industrial revolution. Modernity is a product of industrial revolution. This modernity has many elements. I'll come to that. Rationality is there, discipline is there, organization is there, urbanism is there, science and technology is there, individualism is there, equality is there, freedom is there, but also secularism is there. Secularism basically means the separation of state and religion. The separation of state and religion. In Europe, this got a new meaning. That new meaning was annihilation of religion. End of religion. Why? End of religion because before the modern period, whole of Europe was subject to acute and very brutal religious persecution of each other. The Protestants killed the Catholics, but more the Catholics killed the Protestants. Every village had such rites. Every village had such burning things. They are fed up with this kind of a religious strife and religious conflict. So once they got the chance, after modernity came, after affluence came, after this industrial revolution came, this revolution was not an industrial revolution, because this is a revolution when feudalism was demolished and capitalism emerged. This name has been given by the French author Louis Blanc. Louis Blanc called this industrial revolution. He called it the industrial revolution. The French author, the French scholar. Now, as far as this secularism is concerned, when secularism came to India, it got a new color. Why? Now you see the Constitution. The Constitution has an imprint of modernity, because Nehru was there. He was the convener of the Constituent Committee. He was the convener. Now, this Ambedkar Baba was only the chairman of the drafting committee, not the maker of the Constitution. Another B.N. Rao was the man who who moved all over the world. He collected all information, went to Australia, went to Ireland, went to America, and collected all things. Germany, Weimar Republic things that come to India and incorporated Indian Constitution. So, naturally, you see Article 25, 26, 27, 28. They reflect the spirit of modernity. But there was an extra constitutional authority in India. Mahatma Ji was there. The Mahatma was a great person. Lean, frail. He had one great quality. He knew about the Indian people. He knew about the Indian people. And he realized that the Indian people are deeply religious. Despite everything, despite all modernity, even today, in the 21st century, in this second decade of the, whenever a person buys a color television, first he takes it to his home and does a puja. A computer, a microprocessor does a puja. So this kind of pervasive existence of religion is there. Gandhi said that became the practice, even in the constitutional practice, let all religions be practiced and respected. But no religion would be promoted and sponsored by the state. No religion would be given any kind of protection, promotion by the state. This is the secularism India has. This is the secularism India has. Now the question is that we are being prevented from observing our traditional practices because of secularism, because of modernity. In other words, because of this modernity. Now, there you can just give 5 things. Not many things, because we have so many practices, cultural practices. Some of them are very abominable, some of them are very unthinkable, but they are there. Number 1 is, why this question has emerged, why this question has been asked. Number 1 is the Sabri Mala temple issue. Right, that Sabri Mala temple issue is a question of faith, and that's why they say that it's a cultural practice that reproductive age women would not go and pray in the temple, and the Supreme Court has allowed them because of the principle of secularism. The second thing, a mud snan or a meda snan is there in Karnataka, in the coastal belt of Mangalore and all their areas have this practice. What is that? They just try the lower castes. They just roll down on those leaves, palm leaves and others on which the upper caste or the Brahmins have taken their meals. This is because we do not leave this practice very easily, continuing something, but then again Supreme Court struck it out and this was made illegal. The third thing is that as far as that a Muslim personal law is concerned, a very progressive legislation, ban on Triple Thalaaq has been introduced. But this ban on Triple Thalaaq is not being implemented. Why? Because the Muslim clergy and even the Muslim women and even that Zakia Sonam, who was leading a movement, Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan in Ahmedabad, even she did not welcome this progressive step. Majority of the Muslim states, including Pakistan, has banned this Triple Thalaaq. Including Pakistan has banned this Triple Thalaaq. But when, no, why? Why they say that no, we are not going to accept this secular practice and we'll follow our own personal law. The fourth is that in some areas of India, for example, even this Jallikuttu, what is this? Jallikuttu is that the reared bulls are made to fight with each other. It is Spanish practice, long 1,000 years practice. But this has been struck out by Supreme Court and they just went to courts and they are saying that it is just because of modernity, just because of secularism that the court is not allowing to just happen this. Now, and finally, tribes, not only tribes, this fowl or this murga ladai is very widespread in many parts of India. Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, all that area, and they have gone to court. The court itself has banned it. There is a law, prevention of cruelty against animals and birds and all, and there is a law. But they are, sometimes they say, "Are, will you allow us this? And only then we will vote for you." So this is something because, but you will not say this, you will contest this question at the end in a point that since there are cultural practices which are abominable, which are inhuman, and they are born and rooted in Indian ancient past or medieval past, since times are changing, they should change and secularism should be maintained. This should be the conclusion, that secularism should be maintained. Don't write in this, but remember two things. Secularism is not a question of choice for India. It's a question of compulsion. Why? Why it's a question of compulsion? Number one, because many of the border states do not have Hindu majority. Jammu Kashmir, one. If we just negate secularism, what would be the justification for having Jammu and Kashmir with us? Only by secularism we have a claim on Kashmir. The second is Punjab, a Sikh majority state. And those four states, Christian dominated states, those are border states. Arunachal Pradesh, a disputed area between China and India, has Christian population and the percentage-wise the largest Buddhist percentage. How much? 36% Buddhist population is there in Arunachal Pradesh. The state's populations, 36% are following the Buddhist religion. The second thing is, why it is a compulsion? There is such a large non-Hindu population in India that it used to be difficult to make India in a theological state, theocracy, and a kind of a non-secular state. Never you write in this question at least, but you must understand these arguments or these. Any questions, any doubts? Yeah.
Are we not equating culture with religion? Because secularism as a concept, it has relation with religion. But the question is culture. So how do we like?
No, here it is the question that what are the challenges to our cultural practices in the name of secularism? In the name of secularism. In this question, this secularism is the major question. That since secularism is a declared principle, it's a part of the basic structure of Indian constitution. So, and we are prevented because of this secularism in our cultural practices. We are not saying religious practices. We are saying what are these cultural practices? They are not very religious practices, to be very frank. But as far as secularism is concerned, this has to be linked to religion. This has to be linked to religion. After all, you think one thing, that Hinduism as such as Hinduism of those areas, go to Maharashtra, they just worship Ganapati. But they have a different, very entirely different concept of religion. Go to Odisha. That's why I said that accommodation is there. They, in the Puri Jagannath temple, the prasad is made by whom? The Dalits. Now, our Kanikuj Brahman will take, Maithil Brahmans should take, Nambudri Brahmans should take that prasad. They never take prasad in Puri. Even our upper caste, some of the backward castes also do not take prasad in Puri. So this country is a large country. And so the Ganapatai area, the Maharashtra area, then this Shakya area, there's a Shakti worshipping area. They have a different practice. You say that no, we are very much vegetarian. Given a chance, Bengalis would eat and the Bengali Brahmins would eat even the human beings. They eat everything. So this kind of a practice, cultural practice, are so varied that uniformity can come through only modernity, and that is coming. That is by because of railways. There are many people who have married. They were just serial, Mohabbati or something like that. A Punjabi and this Tamil girl or someone, they married each other. It kind of marriages are occurring, happening. These railways have united India. Cinema has united. Even in South India, they are singing the Indian songs. So, and in Northeast India, you go to Nagaland and the Punjabi songs are very popular. I asked one there in Kohima area, do you understand the meaning of this song? How it matters. But the dance steps are very good. What this is modernity. This is modernity which can unite. Don't you see the contradiction? That the same party who are just killing people on the name of cow meat and cow eating, cow slaughter. I have seen with my own eyes in Goa, will provide you the best beef. And this is because they have to do it. They'll have to wear various clothes, various hats. And this is very, very diverse country. Diversity is the asset of India. It's the soul of India. This is the soul of India. I think, and I have written very often, I was a member and a committee, I said that in school curriculum, you do one thing, move the children all over the state, in one province. And as far as this colleges, in college there should be compulsory excursion, all India tour. If they see all India once, even you have not seen it, but those who do that, go for administrative service training, all central services people are made to move all over India. Every state they have to go. This should be made compulsory for college students, because by then you will have the pulse of India. What is this bird called India? Come on. Bolo, any question? Anything? Now, so I think that culture, you understand, culture is not religion. Culture is a very broad thing. But secularism is definitely related to religion. This argument, many people say that religion is dharma, it's a duty. So it is panth. That argument does not hold. That's a very poor argument. So we come to this again. Society question is 17. No, it is a current geography question. 18. Do we have cultural pockets of small India all over the nation? Elaborate with examples. So, again, probably, I don't know why this is give them the number. I received many phone calls. I just don't pick phones, unknown numbers. Mostly they are abuses. So naturally, so when I came to Delhi only 3-4 days back, where you had been, sir? This is an enigmatic question. Cultural pockets of India, what does it mean? Now, understand, do we have cultural pockets of small India all over the nation? Elaborate with examples. What does it mean? It means that start with that India is a diverse country having distinct, identifiable regional cultures. Now, these regional cultures emerged in 7th century AD because of many regions. The Bhakti movement, the Alvars and the Nayanars, they also promoted regional language. Why? They learnt, the genius of Brahman learnt that the Buddhists have adopted Pali language, a people's language. Jainism has adopted the Prakrit language, so they also thought they would also accept the regional people languages, and they adopted it. And so they gave encouragement to the regional cultures. Number 2, these regional cultures are very different from each other. In what matters? In 5 matters. Number 1, in dress. Number 2, in eating habits. Number 3, in their whole lifestyle. Number 4, their cultural practices. You go to Bengal, you say, the girl is not very good looking, but the girl knows singing. Oh, that's a very good thing. Yes, I'll marry my son with this girl. What is this? Go to UP, Abhaiya ji, and say that, oh, my girl is a very good singer. Paturiya, oh, will not marry. So naturally, you see, have you ever marked? In South India, most of the leaders are ex-actors, ex-film personalities, ex-film writers, ex-script writers. Has there been any great hero or great actor in North India who has become a leader? Any example? Amitabh Bachchan did not stand the second time because he was fearful that I lose my deposits. He could win from Allahabad not because of his actor characteristic, but he was a caste and he is a caste. Then they have got a good population of castes. So this is the regional difference and this is very important. But then we have certain features which are all India features. No matter whatever is the religion, no matter whatever is the region, no matter whatever is the other characteristics. 5 things. Number 1, Indian culture and society is based on holism, based on group orientation. When you pass and achieve and compete as IAS, people ask your father's name, not yours name. कौन family का है? So naturally, अरे बाबा, family is important, caste is important, religion is important, village is important, not the individual is important. This is existing everywhere in India. Existing everywhere in India. Number 2, Indian society and culture has hierarchy, inequality, institutional inequality is part of Indian society and culture. Institutional inequality. What do you mean by this? Not only human beings. You take the birds, swan is the best bird, and this kawa, oh, not at all, crow is not at all good. So that way, rivers, Gangaji, ah ha ha ha, Karamnasa, not at all, not at all, not at all. So naturally, anywhere you go to India, even it's a Muslim area, it's a Christian area, you ask for water, first they will see that. Try to know who you are. And only then you will be offered water in a glass tumbler, in a bronze tumbler, or simply in an earthen tumbler. And then you will say, they say, Are, just do this and I'll just do up the water. So this is hierarchy. Every religion. Are Baba, where is in this Islam, great Islam? All equal. Are even the Muslims have caste system. They do not allow the Bhangi Muslims to offer namaz in the same mosque. This is Indian society. This is Indian society. The third thing is retirement concept. अब तो आपकी उम्र हो गई. Now just do all these dharmic things and religious things. Why are you moving all these things and doing all these things? The concept is not only Hindu concept. When you are old, you are asked to retire. The Bahuji is waiting and waiting for years. Are when this Budhya will give the keys to me? This is part of Indian culture. This is India. Everywhere this is the thing. Number 4 is Indian society do not recognize history, records. We do not recognize records, history. The ancient history in India is only the Purans. The first history book was written by a Kashmiri Pandit, Kalhan, and the name was Raj Tarangini. Raj Tarangini. So naturally, Indian society does not have this sense of kind of history. And finally, we have always a sense of purity and impurity. A sense of purity and impurity. No matter whatever the religion, whatever the area, this is not a good thing, this is not a good place, and do not spit here. So naturally, in urban areas, people spit everywhere. Now, what has happened in the modern buildings? In every corner, they have written Ram or something, a God's name, Bismillah, all these things, and Christian cross, they have made a cross. So how will just spit on that? But this sense of is there, don't go there, don't move in this direction. So this kind of, no matter whatever is the difference, everywhere this local culture, the local India is existing, and you give these examples that there is Tamil, there you say that no, Tamil and these Kannats are same, or the Tamils are, no, they do have that difference. You see the Bengali movies, and you see the other movies, you see English movies. You must see. The Arabs are sown as slaves. That kind of a thing is there, and that distinction is there. So, is there any difficulty? Right, that everywhere the local area, despite having their distinctions, the Indian characteristic is existing there. So, that is the representing Indian society. Now, coming to what are the continued cultural challenges for women in India against time and space? So the question is really good, and whoever has set this question is a good question. Now, as far as this time, what time? Time has changed. From ancient thing, it has become a modern thing. Space, now there is much of mobility. Now, it's a question on Indian women. What are the continued challenges for women in India against time and space? You start that women in other parts of the world have advanced relatively fast. In the Western countries, they have become, in one line, they have become very empowered, very powerful, and they have forced the World Bank and the UNDP to change their agenda, change their program. In other countries also, the advancement is there. In the second point you write, globalization has definitely made women independent, empowered, and decision makers. European countries have, you see, in Germany, Angela Merkel is ruling like anything. Not only that, probably more than 11 countries have women executives. So, what is happening? The third thing is that in the Western countries, the institution of family and marriage is being challenged. In 1994, the world, UNO was forced to declare the Year of Women. Why? People are not, year of family. People are not marrying, not people making their families. Now this time has changed. Now what has happened? In the next point you write that the Indian woman is still facing the bottleneck, the ideology of patriarchy. What is patriarchy? Patriarchy is an ideology which indicates three things. Male is the authority, male is the priority, and male is always right. He can take the right decision. This is written in the Hindu Shastras, and one scholar Pandari Nath Hari Prabhu, he wrote in 1945 in the Hindu social organization that women are incapable of taking decisions, so they should not be given charge of taking decisions. Patriarchy is so strong that it is not only shared by males, it is shared equally by females. Females are guided by patriarchal ideology. Why they prefer the son? This meta-son preference, this is not only because of that economic, it is also because of the economic thing, but because of the ideology of patriarchy. They give more importance to the son. When the son is ill, they immediately take the son to the doctor. When the daughter is ill, after 3 days, ठीक हो जाएगी, ठीक. Even in the middle class families, so this is the preference. This is the preference. Now, what is happening in India? That India is still suffering from 4 instruments or against women. Number 1 is sexism. Sexism means that woman is a body, woman is a commodity. It is not a personality, it is a commodity. So very often people say that the empowerment of women is a story of transforming the commodity into identity. Transforming the commodity into identity. Number 2 is misogyny. Misogyny is a kind of system where it is felt that women are incapable. Women cannot take decisions. Women cannot take decisions. Number 3 is the glass ceiling. What means? There is no written rule, but the woman will not be made the CEO, will not be the MLA candidate. Why? Because she cannot win the election. This is called as glass ceiling. So, as far as this Me Too are concerned, this is a movement. This is not a cause. This is not a feature. So, right. Then the 4 points. Number 1, the world has changed fast, but women has India not changed that fast. And that is why in India, in the Western countries, women are thinking that they can do without the males. In India, they are not thinking that they can do without the males. They are, I said earlier somewhere in some class, 22% of the female executives or supervisory category postings, they leave their job for the sake of family and for the sake of child. This is a thing which the never in the Western countries that would have, this would never happen. The second thing, as far as women in India are concerned, they are saying that these women activists are not demanding our cause. So the agenda of Indian women is different from the Western women. The agenda of Indian women is different from Western women, and the major leaders of Indian women, Urvashi Butalia, this Neera Desai, they have changed, and they had changed the agenda of women. They kept this family, these children as a priority areas. Then you come down to this space thing. I told you earlier also, they do not have, number 1, women in India still do not have the right to movement. The right to movement, they do not have the right to, so they have a barrier on space. Number two, they face in their transportation, they face in their going to office, the very famous male gaze. You must have seen women running to the forward, that a compartment for women. The modern girls, they're running for that compartment. They'll sit in the ladies' compartment. Why? Because they do feel uncomfortable in the general compartment. They do feel uncomfortable. This is what is the barrier to space. Why they will not sit in the general compartment? Why they will sit in the women compartment? Give this example, that they prefer, even the modern girls, they prefer to sit in the female compartments because they still do not have the freedom to cross that space. Number three is that still, although things have changed, but still women do not prefer moving to some other place where a night travel is involved. Night travel is involved. And then fourth thing is that this has happened in USA, in the Western countries. Probably we know one thing, that the 67% cab drivers in USA are females. 67% cab drivers in USA are women. In India, they are a rare commodity. They are there, now they are there. But they are a rare commodity, that means still. So this is a question of space prevention, barrier to space. Write this and give the example that this is happening. They are not their cab drivers. Uber and this Ola, how many, probably there is, I have but asked them, they have not answered, but I have asked them, send a mail very often, but they have not still responded, that how many women drivers you have just employed or you have just incorporated as your drivers. They do not have. Question number 20. Are we losing our local identity for the global identity? Discuss. Answer in 250 words. Start the answer with globalization. Globalization has three dimensions. Number one is economic. This started with economy. This started with technology, particularly the information technology. Raghuram Rajan has written a book very recently, 3 months or 4 months ago, The Third Pillar. This has been selected for some award also, probably have heard that a business award or something this. Now, he rightly says that IT has changed the face of the world. IT has changed the face of the world. Information technology. This is at the core of this. So economically what has happened, IT has revolutionized the movement of capital. Just a button, just a press on the this tab button, only then the things would, your capital or your capital would move from USA to India or from India to China. Economically, now you may find many people going to China, going to Malaysia, going to Singapore, like they're going to Ajmer, like they're going to Kashi, as frequently as that. Movement of people, movement of capital, movement of commodity, and movement of services. This is economic aspect of globalization. Economic. Now some of the companies are advertising for their CEO post, some of their managerial post, not in a country, it's a global advertisement. It's a global advertisement. Global tenders are there. So the second thing, as far as culture is concerned, globalization has induced a fusion of different cultures. Western music, Indian music, jazz music, going over to America, going over to Hollywood. This has happened. And so most of the Hindi songs, most of the Indian film dances, are Western. Then a mix-up of this Indian and this Western dances. And socially, what has happened? Socially, globalization has changed women. Globalization has changed family. Even in India, probably within 50 years, I think, rather faster, that there can be. Earlier, we thought that India would surpass population of China in 2045. Now we are saying India would cross over in 2027. I do humbly oppose this view. I have written also that I think that this cannot happen before 2035 or 2032. This is because Indian population growth is declining very fast. It is declining very fast. So, socially also, globalization has impacted India. Now, the second aspect, you write very frankly that global culture, despite very powerful impact all over the world, it is said after this Indian independence, it has been the most significant force, most significant change agency as far as India is concerned. Globalization is the most significant force. But there is no danger to Indian culture, Indian local culture because of globalization. Why? Give three arguments. Number one, the Harvard professor Robert Robertson in 1980 gave the concept of glocalization. Glocalization. Robertson gave the concept of globalization, glocalization. So what he said, that global cultures are, or global culture is not able to subsume the local culture. It is not able to subsume the local culture. Nowhere, even in the Western countries, even in the European countries, their regional identities, their national identities are still being maintained. Number two argument, you name one person, a very famous man, R.K. Mukherjee, now dead, Ram Krishna Mukherjee. Ram Krishna Mukherjee, he said, if there is globalization, there is ethnogenization also. What happens? Because of the global impact, every culture tries to regenerate itself because of the fear that it may not be consumed by the global culture. So what happens that this ethnic identities again become very, very powerful. Again become very, very powerful, and there is so everywhere in all the countries there is an attempt to again revive the local cultures, again revive the local traditions, again revive the local crafts. This kind of thing is happening everywhere. The third argument is that all over the world, in this age of globalization, there is revivalism. There is revivalism. What is happening in India? Not only Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism. So people have studied Sikh religion. Sikhs, that they are now more practicing their religion. The Muslims, abundant mosques have become very, very, very active mosque. So the temples, there is no space, and many of the new chappals are being stolen from the temples. There in Beersarai, there is a temple, and one woman was almost weeping. Are Baba, I had bought just 3 days ago, and my chappal is lost. So that means there are now more people going to pilgrimage, more people going. This is what? Is this globalization? No. This is the enrichment and revival of the local cultures. This is happening. So this revivalism is something which is happening because of this globalization. This is a response of the local cultures. Any doubts in this? Any doubts? Probably with this, there is the first question, history questions. The 1850 uprising was the culmination of the recurrent big and small local rebellions that had occurred in the preceding 100 years of British rule. Now remember, the 1857 rebellion, number one, start with this 1857 rebellion was symptomatic of proto-nationalism. Symptomatic of proto-nationalism. For the first proto-nationalism, for the first time in India, people of different parts of India fought for India, fought for Hindustan. Before that, in no period of history, they had fought for India, they had fought for Bharat, they had fought for Hindustan. No, first time. Then just write that this not an all India movement, but this was a people's movement led by the recalcitrant feudal lords, unsatisfied, dissatisfied feudal lords, some of them, not all, because the majority of the feudal lords were with the British. And Lord Canning declared in 1858, but for these storm breakers, we were almost thrown out of India. Who were these storm breakers? The feudal lords. Majority of them supported the British rule. The participants were, number one, the participants were non-drafted or rejected army personnel or Indian army personnel from the company army. Mostly they were done regularly, but it was Dalhousie, the villain of the piece, who threw them out in large numbers. Second were the peasants, because the excessive Lord Cornwallis or any other, John Shore, 1793 Cornwallis by the permanent settlement, and John Shore by his rules, they increased the land revenue, and that almost penured these cash crops. They said that they will be just encouraging cash crops. They could not be able to do this, and the Indian peasant was almost ruined, and that's why they joined. The third were the artisans. Because of the industrial goods, the artisans became unemployed. The fourth were the religious clergy. Earlier they got employment and they had their jobs. The Jamindar, even a small Jamindar, gave 2 villages to the Maulvi Sahib, to the Pandit ji, and he could sustain. Now there are none to give them. Why should we give them? And so, lastly, the cultural people, the musicians, the dancers, the magic wallas, the sapera, all lost their jobs. But you see, when the musician who sings songs with that ektara moved from village to village and they communicated, there was no mail, there was no mobile, and so they acted as the great source of communication, and then this revolution occurred. This was, many people are saying, but as far as I remember, it was Marx who in 1858, in his article to San Francisco Tribune, called this the first war of Indian independence. Only then Savarkar just repeated it, but that was much later. So it was Marx who called it, and probably, I don't know why people have not still said this, but no, one person has said this. So This was characterized as first war of independence. This war, this movement, this kind of a independence struggle could happen not because of modernizing factors, not because of the cause was British rule, no doubt. The cause was East India Company, no doubt. But this movement was not modernizing. You see, the nascent middle class in Bengal, the nascent middle class in Bombay, the nascent middle class in Madras, they did not join the 1857 struggle. It was largely boycotted by them. So, and one of the reasons why this movement failed was the inefficient leadership. Now, the question is very right. Then you write that yes, it was the culmination of many local rebellions, many local struggles. Why these struggles had happened? Number one, in 1761 itself, in Bengal, because that was the only state where the Britishers first had the control of revenue rights, and so the fakirs, Majnun Shah, these Majnun Shah or these fakirs were whom? They are not warriors, they are not fighters. They moved from one place to another place, preached their religion, all those things, but they controlled land and they gave this land to peasants and they just had some kind of a earning from that land. And the Britishers and the East India Company objected to two things of theirs. They carried arms, and number two, they had control over some land. Another is the Sannyasi Movement. The Sannyasi Movement, also 18th century movement from 1767 and 63, Devi Singh, Devi Chaudharani, all these are the. So what happened? So the leader was Bhavani Pathak. Bhavani Pathak and Majnu Shah entered into an agreement and gave a good challenge to the East India Company. Ultimately they were defeated, no doubt, but they gave a good challenge. So there was another movement, the Rangpur movement, the Rangpur Bidroh, Rangpur rebellion, still in East Bengal. And in Rangpur, they again objected to. Here, in very often what happened, that the Britishers had to support the punitive jamindars and the punitive lords. And because of the punitive lords, because of the punitive jamindars, they could challenge, or the Britishers came. And then the Britishers, these landlords, they increased the land revenue more. Whenever they wanted the hathi and the elephant, they had an tax, hathauna tax. They wanted to buy somewhat later other things, and they had the tax for that. So that they were very tyrannical, and that's why such movements happened. Naturally, there are numerous such movements. The tribal movements were also there. But there were two differences. Number one, the tribes were not part of a kind of British opposition. They wanted simply that their autonomy should not be disturbed. But the tribal movements also contributed, although nowhere in the 1857 struggle the tribals participated in large numbers. Nowhere the tribals were a party to this movement, although others were a movement party. So there were numerous movements, the Rangpur, the Fakir, the Sannyasi, the Faraji movement, the Sarfuddin movement, all these movements were there. Name only few, but explain the regions, that the regions where increased land revenue, the regions where the atrocities of the zamindars, and the regions where of alien rule and alien foreign power who was trying to control, and they remained alien because they did not know the language of this land and they did not try to adopt it too. So this was the first time. Colonization of India was the first time, because the others, when the Mughals came, most of them were sons of the Rajput mothers. And so the cutter of the cutter, Aurangzeb, he did not die for 2 days because the Ganga water had not come from this ghat, some Brihadeswar ghat or there. And so the horse was the fastest thing. And so Aurangabad, that Aurangzeb death, so Aurangzeb also, they gave this kind of they adopted this country. The Britishers never adopted this country. So this kind of a thing just happened, and that led to that 57 struggle. Next is examine the linkage between 19th century Indian Renaissance and the emergence of national identity. What Renaissance means? What is this Renaissance? A kind of a societies or a cultural resurrection, re-emergence, a kind of a this reassertion of that identity and identity. So this number one, the East India Company rule was responsible. Number two, British education was responsible. Number three, the Western ideologies were responsible. Because of these things, number one, the East India Company rule. Number two, British education, English education. Number three, the Western ideology. Where we did know about democracy? This is all Western things. We could, French Revolution, that history, that I'm coming to that. But remember, the French Revolution was also a capitalist revolution. Coming to that, but the French Revolution was also an industrial revolution. Industrial revolution occurred first in England. But the British people have been always very deliberated people. They think over something. The French, temperamental people. When they laugh for hours. When they weep for hours. When they dance for weeks. So when they kill, they also kill with impunity. You know probably that France has won the Football World Cup second time. Which year? Last year? 2018. Earlier they won it in 1998. What they did at that time? They danced and danced continuously for 6 days. And then the president had to order, you have to come back to your duties, your offices within 12 hours or your jobs will be terminated. This time they took a precaution. 7 days before the final, they said there will not be any holiday more than 1 day if perchance France wins the World Cup. So the French Revolution became French Revolution for many things, but also because of the temperamental nature of the French people. It became so barbarous, it became so cruel that many of the clergy, they fled from there, they came down to India. Many of them, thousands of them, and they established their churches in India. So, but there is a question, I'll come to that. Now, here, as far as this question is, the Renaissance started. Remember, this Renaissance was not part of these local rebellions. This Renaissance was not part of the local rebellions, as far as we know. Now, it was Bengal who Ram Mohan Rai and his 11 friends, they formed a group, The name of the group was Atmiya Sabha. The name of the group was Atmiya Sabha. This Atmiya Sabha did what? On every Sunday they met together and every person gave a speech or gave a lecture on one topic. This was the beginning of Indian Renaissance. This was the beginning of Indian Renaissance. Ram Mohan Rai, a great personality. In 1848, he resigned his job from the East India Company, came from Bardhaman to Calcutta and wanted to just have education, English education, all that. He came to Patna to have learning Arabic and Persian, and then went back, and then after some time, he opposed the opening of Sanskrit College in Calcutta. And he did not allow the Sanskrit College to happen in Calcutta. He was instrumental in establishing the Hindu College in Calcutta, which became later on Presidency College, and so his friends, Vidyasagar, his colleagues, Chiti Mohan Ghosh, his colleagues, Radha Mohan Chakravarti, these people were the leaders of Indian Renaissance. So, there are three different things from the European Renaissance in the Indian Renaissance. Indian Renaissance was not totally modern or anti-religious. Ram Mohan Rai was forced to start an organization which was basically based on religion, Brahmo Samaj. Only thing, from polytheism, he transitioned to monotheism, one God, from multiple gods to one God, monotheism. Naturally, as far as the second thing is concerned, nobody objected to kind of thing, caste thing. They did not want to abolish caste. Nowhere there is a question, there was a demand to abolish caste, this decadent institution. Ram Mohan was a Brahman. He in his own life did not take any meal prepared by any other person than a Brahman. Nowhere they attacked the caste system. Religion is one, caste is second. The third thing is, they tried to reform women marriage. They tried to reform child marriage. They tried to reform other things. So widow remarriage. Vidyasagar just moved for widow remarriage. So this Renaissance did initiate a kind of a movement where later on nationalism emerged. So there are two things you write. Number one, the Indian middle class, which were trained in British education, who learned the ideology of the West, they learned nationalism from the West. They started the national movement. But they were not very progressive in social terms. In 1885, when Congress was formed, the first organized expression of Indian nationalism, for 3 years they allowed the holding of the social conference at the same venue. But after that, they did not allow it. Ambedkar said that the Indian middle class was interested in power, not in social reform. Ambedkar said in his book, 1934 book, Annihilation of Caste, that the Indian middle class reformers were interested in political power, not interested in social reform, not interested in awakening They definitely led the movement for nationalism. They definitely led the movement for this social, partial social reform, but not for altering the whole thing, because nowhere other than the backward caste, other than the untouchable caste, the Brahmins did not raise the question of caste. Clear? Any doubts? So now the there must be an Achay. 11. 11. What is this 11 here? Many voices had strengthened and enriched the national movement during the Gandhian phase. Now, what does it mean? Linkage means they are related to each other. Linkage means they are related. If there was no Renaissance from the early period, so Ram Mohan started this in the 1828, 1829, in 1831 he died. So I don't think that you should use the term Raja. I don't know why the Bengalis are continuing with it. This Raja, he was never a Raja of any other place. It's what Akbar II who gave him the title of Raja. He appealed him in advocate, Arey Jao England. He sent him to England on his own money that increase my donations and that emoluments per month, that khiraj from the British rulers. Well, actually, he was Ram Mohan Rai. He was no doubt a Jamindar in Bengal, a Jamindar in Bardhaman. Family was a Jamindar, but he was a great person. The amount of education he got on his own, so that was really great, and the amount of writing he did was really great. So the linkage is, if this Renaissance wouldn't have occurred, the national movement also wouldn't have occurred. The nationalism, I said, first organized before Ram Mohan in his whole writings. He has not said, he said about the Indian society, the whole Indian society, the whole Indian culture, but probably he has not used the Indian nation. So even Vivekanand, he never uses the term Hindu Rashtra. Vivekanand was a very radical person. Vivekanand was a very, very progressive person that way, and I am really surprised how those traditional people are adopting him. His writings are so radical. His writings are so radical. This graduate, science graduate, son of a lawyer, Radha Mohan, so and a very brilliant man and very determined person. He wrote well and tried to just, no doubt he wanted to revive Hindu religion, but he wanted to revive it on a modern Vedanta basis, not on a traditional basis. So his view is also, he never talked of a Hindu nation. He is called Hindu regeneration, but he does not talk of a Hindu nation. That's a very clear thing. So naturally, in this part, in this phase, the early phase of 19th century is the phase of Indian Renaissance. The latter part of the 19th century is the part of Indian nationalism. So this All India Congress Committee was formed in 1885, but before that, in different presidency towns, there was India Association. This India Association was a precursor to the formation of Indian National Congress. Surendranath Banerjee was the leader of India Association in Calcutta. Then this another man was in Bombay, and the Challaswamy was in Madras. So these were the people who later on conversed together to form. Keshav Chandra Sen, when he moved to different parts of India, he said that we have to resurrect Indian culture in Indian society and Indian country also, but probably he has not said Indian nation. Nothing of that sort. So that came after this. Keshav Chandra Sen was probably one step ahead than this Ram Mohan, but even he did not talk about Indian national emancipation. They talked of Indian emancipation. Clear? Now, as far as this question is, what is, yaar, kahan hai? 11. Many verses start this question. Number first line, the Gandhian era in India is from 1915 to 1947. The Gandhian era in Indian politics is from 1915 to 1947. Not from 1915, but from 1917, the Lucknow Congress. He almost controlled the whole nationalist movement through his personality. And number 3, right, that Gandhi was not only the colossal personality who led the national movement, but was sufficiently broad-hearted and sufficiently benign to accommodate all the views. Then you write the second point. In 1942, in the Quit India movement, the Congress party led the movement, participated in the movement, but the Hindu Mahasabha did not participate. The RSS did not participate. The Muslim League did not participate. The Communists did not participate. Ambedkar did not participate. Gandhi did not call anybody anti-national. Despite everything, Gandhi insisted in 1946, when the interim government was being formed, that in any case Ambedkar has to be taken in the cabinet. Ambedkar has to be taken in the cabinet. So naturally, then you write that in 1915 to 1947, what were the different voices? Right? That number 1, Ambedkar started his different classes association first and then different classes federation in 1922. He then formed the Independent Labour Party, and he did talk that the Britishers should go from India. Number 2, the Akali Dal, formed in 1927, participated in the Round Table Conference, and there also they said that the Britishers have to leave India and give power to the Indians. It's true that they said that Congress should not dominate, Congress should not hegemonize. The Hindu Mahasabha, even this letter on the RSS and the Communists, they also said that no, they waged movements, they launched movements. The Communists, they struggled against in the railways, and they were Kakori case, Lahore conspiracy case, and all these cases were instituted. Kanpur conspiracy case were instituted against them, because then this extremist, left extremist, Bhagat Singh, what he was a left extremist. When he was to be executed, the day after that date, he was to be executed, and he was reading what? He was reading the biography of Lenin. His sister went to meet him and request last time that you should just take undertaking that you will not do. What is the harm? Your life would be saved. You are so young. I said, no. You see, one revolutionary is reading the biography of another another revolutionary, and so I'll die death of the hero. And Chandrasekhar Azad, they never compromised. They also contributed, and these were the many voices. These were the rightists, leftists, centrists, all these people. They just wanted to just kick out the British and get Indian independence. And so all of them, 2 things you should write. that the peasant struggles and the working class movement, they also tried. There is a misnomer. In 1920, Congress organized a workers' conference where Nagpur, under whose presidency Nehru and Lajpat Rai was made the president of Indian National Trade Union Congress, but All India Trade Union Congress, INTUC has been formed later, and so it was not for the promotion of the trade unions, because the Indian National Congress always received money and donations from the industrialists. They did not want to go against those industrialists. Subhash Chandra Bose was the only lone wolf who had a movement against TISCO in 1921, but then he also was silenced. Now they wanted to select 9 members to attend the Geneva Conference on Labour, ILU conference. So, but the labor movement contributed to the Indian independence, and the peasant movement also contributed to Indian independence. Now, this question number kitna hai yaar? 12. Assess the role of British imperial power in complicating the process of transfer of power during the 1940s. Remember, 2 things. Number 1, then the British here in India did not pursue a very uniform rule. There was one Governor General, one Viceroy, his name was Lord Ripon. He introduced the Panchayati Raj, local self-government. Lord Ripon withdrew this Press Act. Then this all progressive, just after him, the Lord Lytton, the very, very reactionary Viceroy. So, this question is right, but this question should have you answer that from 1941 onwards, the British politics was subjected to numerous internal contradictions itself. Number 1, in 1938, Attlee and Smith, who was this Smith? अरे यार 1942 किसके अंदर में आया था? लेबर लीडर थे. चलिए हम बात फिर आते हैं. In 1938, Italy had assured Nehru that when Labour Party would come again to power, we'll give you definitely independence. But in 1940, what happened? Churchill became the Prime Minister of India. And Churchill led that coalition government, the national government. And Churchill was a supporter of empire. He did not want the demolition of empire under his premiership, under his lordship, and so he wanted to know, don't give the Indians total independence. In 1940, Lord Webber's proposal and the Simla Conference floundered because that conference did not give equal, and they tried to just equate Muslim League and Congress. The Congress attitude to Muslim League had stiffened in 1937 elections itself, because the League could not win a single state, and a Muslim League could not win a single state where these 8 states had Congress majorities. So this probably was unfortunate, and Gandhi wanted to prevail over Nehru and Patel, but he could not do it. And so because of this, things became rather difficult. So that plan, Simla agreement Simla conference could not be successful because Webber's plan was not accepted to the Congress. Then, and in this conference, Jinnah said for the first time Azad to be the errand boy of Congress. Abul Kalam Azad was called by Muhammad Ali Jinnah as the errand boy of Congress. He does not have who was the president of Indian National Congress in that period? It was Azad. Azad was the president of Indian National Congress for the longest duration. For the longest duration. This Smith script, Stafford Cripps, the labor leader, came to India in 1842 as the leader of the Cripps mission. He had three things in his pocket. One, dominion status. Number two, a constituent assembly elected by all the able persons of India or the adult persons of India. But number three was that the viceroy would have the veto in his hands. That was rather not acceptable to Congress, and then Congress could not withdraw, because what happened? Why this was there? Two causes were there. Germany up till 1942 was winning the war in Europe, but for India and for British, Japanese advances up to 1942 was the major cause of concern. This gave and this made them rather somewhat ambivalent in giving India total independence. And when the cabinet mission came, then the cabinet mission had its hands almost bound, because by then the war was over, the Labour Party was in power, and their own pledge was there. But two things. Number one, India did not get independence because of the benevolence of the British rule. They are not benign. They are forced by two factors. They could not hold on to the power in India because they didn't have sufficient funds, and America wanted India to be given independence, and the Charter Act, the Atlantic Charter, was signed by the American president, in which he assured that all the people would be given freedom and independence. Britain could not go against America because of the huge debt it owed from America. So this is the region, and the recalcitrant, because the European powers, there was so right that even in England the opinion was not same, opinion was different. There were Churchill and there was the Labour Party. Labour were always in favor of granting independence, some kind of control, some kind of relationship they wanted, as they also wanted that India should remain a member of the British Commonwealth. Clear? Any doubts? But this is a fact that Britain had from 1940 to 1946 always changed their position, and some or other they wanted to have some control over the Indian country or the Indian. It became nation only in 1947. Before that, India was a state but not a nation. India was a state but not a nation. The last question is explain how the foundations of the modern world led by American and French Revolution. Now remember, now I come to this modernization. Modernization means what? Modernization is an intellectual movement. It is an intellectual movement born out of industrialization. Industrialization has produced those conditions in which there could be scholars like Rousseau, there could be scholars like Voltaire, there could be scholars like Vico, there could be scholars like Hobbes, there could be scholars like Locke, who said that no, human beings are born free and they are chained by this system, Rousseau's statement. And this chains must be freed, this chain must be loosened, they should not be there. Now, as far as this modernization is concerned, this modernization provided the opportunity, provided that kind of a condition in which Rousseau would say this, Voltaire could, they differed in their opinion. You remember, Voltaire was the advisor to the Queen of Russia, Catherine. Catherine had her advisor, this Voltaire, because she advised and she got advices that how she could modernize Russia so that she could rule over Russia. Naturally, they differed. Rousseau was very different from Locke. Rousseau was very different from this Hobbes. But Rousseau was the most progressive. Rousseau was the most radical. Now, this modernity had almost 9 or 10 principles. The first is rationality. The second is calculation. From Industrial Revolution, double accounting is started. Earlier it was only profit and loss. Number 3, discipline. Number 4, organization. Number 5, individualism. Number 6, urbanism. Urban areas, not rural areas. Number 7, promotion of science and technology. Science is supreme, technology is supreme, this feeling came because it was the basis of industry, it was the source of industry. Then there was secularism. Religion and state should be separate from one another. And then there was equality. Then there was freedom, liberty. Now these things, these ideas were behind the American Revolution, which was somewhat earlier than the French Revolution. Now why American Revolution is not called only a war of independence? Because American Revolution represented these ideas, the idea of liberty, the idea of equality, the idea of discipline, the idea of organization are the backbone of American Revolution. Later on they changed. But at that time, from 1778 or 1777 to 1783, the whole war between the 13 states of America and Britain was this not only war for independence from Britain, but this was a war to promote the ideas of liberty, to promote the ideas of rationality. Because what happened? Britain remained a mercantile country, America became an industrial country. America became an industrial country and Britain remained a mercantile country. In 100 years, what America achieved, Britain could achieve in 300 and 400 years. So America became almost an industrial society within 150 or 100 years, from an agrarian society, from a peasant society to an industrial society. It became largest producer of steel, largest producer of wool, largest producer of aluminium. This was a new phenomenon. So American War of Independence and this French Revolution, I said that the French Revolution could occur in France because of 3 things. I have once told one reason that the French were temperamental. British are not temperamental. The revolution could occur in France. Why not? Why not in England? Because the England people are not that kind of radical people. The Parisian courts are still feared by France. Number 2 reason was, the first reason is this temperamental thing. That's why so much of violence was there, so much of anarchy was there. The second reason was that unlike the British rulers, the French rulers were fools, they're idiots. They should have gone some of the steps of revolution. They should have gone with because they were wanting, they were not disliking this industrialization, but they wanted to keep their power intact. Two things could not have happened. They were, the British, the French monarch was wanting industry in France because England, their traditional rivals, had gone ahead. In 1688, there were the glorious struggles, and which was the result of this industry in England. And it took almost 100 years. You see that in 1783 or 1780, that struggle in France started. See, it was almost 100 years later, they realized that they lacked this. So, the British, the French rulers were fools. That's why they attracted the revolution. The third reason is that since they had lagged behind the British, the French wanted to industrialize as fast as possible. So the pace of industrialization in France was very fast. And that's why the changes were also fast, and it produced the mother of all revolution, the French Revolution. And this French Revolution could promote with it the ideas of liberty, the ideas of fraternity, and the ideas of equality. And that is the basis of modernization, that is the basis of modern world. Modern world is based on the principles of American Revolution. Modern world is based on the principles of French Revolution. No matter how much they dislike these ideas, they could not resist these ideas. Women equality, this is the equality of all people. The blacks were almost bought in America. The same blacks could be equated and could be equaled some 100 years after that in 1863 or 1867 when the Civil War started. That was unthinkable, but that could happen only because there was the American Revolution. So you'll give all those regions and only the 5 things in American Revolution, then the things in so it was not only a war against the British, this was the ideas struggles, the ideas of liberty, the ideas of equality, the ideas of this democracy. So before England could just mature their democracy, this Washington could be elected the president because of his charisma. But Jefferson didn't have any charisma, but he was also elected because of that democratic thing. And so democracy was consolidated by America. So with this we finish this. But I think that this kind of thing or this don't, as far as this reading is concerned, I think that it is better to read the classical text. That means NCERT is a good source. In culture also, NCERT is a good source. And even in world history, there is only one question from world history this time. Last time probably there were, in 2017, there are 2 questions from world history. But even in that, you don't go for these bazaar notes, even if they are our notes. We should read books and a context, because probably when you read and this struggle of Indian independence, either it is Bipan Chandra or anybody else. Tarachand's book was good, but Tarachand has become out of fashion right now. But that was a good book. Even Ghoshal is a good book, but not that, it requires some kind of a detailed interpretation. You need to go for NCERT. That's the best thing, I think. And any other book, earlier I have also told you, you have got time now. That is not faltu thing. If you read some, for example, I have gave you only now one name, Raghuram Rajan. You can just take it from some library. I am really surprised why these libraries are not having these books. They are earning so much of money. They only provide that sitting arrangement and that AC, nothing else. No cup of tea also. They should provide some cup of tea also and some books also. Because these books, Raghuram Rajan's, this Thomas Piketty's book, Modern Capitalism, even this book, Abhijit Banerjee has written a versatile genius, I think. So we are referring to him for the last 10 years. He has done a study on intercaste marriage. Naturally, he said why this intercaste marriage is not happening so much in India, not only because of their caste rules, but also because that there is inequality as far as social status is concerned. When people marry within their own caste, a Brahman will not, a rich Brahman, an IAS Brahman will not marry of his daughter with a very poor Brahman. Not at all. They see family background. There are code words, decent marriage, sufficient dowry. Family background, that means not a lucha thing, and that should be. And so this is a Jharkhand and Bihar slang. Lucha means some kind of lumpen who is not responsible. So these are the things which you should mind and go for the stand. And then these extra books, they are not waste of time. You have got time, at least in 1 month, try to read that book, Age of Anger. That also a good book. By Pankaj Misra. Whole background of the American Revolution and the French Revolution you will get in this book, because he is also JNU student now in America. JNU has produced alumni and a good bunch of people, that's true. And so even Sitaraman is from JNU. And it's not wastage of time. Even in your own language, if you have got some books, original books, which you try to read. Thank you very much.